Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Yes, Mayor. Board of Commissioners public meeting, Tuesday, December 16th, 2014. The time is now 8:05. Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, notice of this meeting was published in the December 12, 2013 issues of the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, and the Herald News. A copy of this notice has been posted on the Nutley Town Hall Bulletin Board, and a copy is on file in the Municipal Clerk's office. Commissioner Rogers? Commissioner Tucci?
Here.
Commissioner Evans?
Here.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Here.
Mayor Petracco?
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Okay, I see we have no minutes, communications or correspondence. We did have the presentation of the surrogate. We'll move on to reports. Commissioner Scarpelli?
Yes, Mayor, I have various reports for 2014.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tucci?
I have a shade tree report for the months of October and November.
Okay, we'll move on to the bills, please.
Yes, Mayor. Public Affairs, $193,076.51. Revenue and Finance, $4,300,637.99. Public Safety, $97,032.97. Public Works, $313,682.34. Parks and Public Property, $118,745.01. Total payroll, $778,719.52, for a grand total of $5,801,894.34.
Need a
Move
motion?
the bills.
Second?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye. Thank you.
Welcome.
We'll move on to some ordinance public hearings. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you. Tonight we have a public hearing related to some modifications to our zoning code, Chapter 700 of the code. This is an additional installment on the changes that we have been making. So as a board, been very focused on those things we can do to promote business, shop Nutley, and encourage business development in our town. So previously having revised the sign ordinance, the parking ordinance, as well as some of the other things, especially during the summer when we modified rules around backyard pools and things like that to conform to state code. So this is an additional set of work. One of the things that was noted was that there were several inconsistencies in our code. There was interpretation in our code in terms of definitions that made it more difficult to in effect interact with our code and do business in the town. Resulting impact of that was actually requiring people to go for variances that would not necessarily be necessary. So with this, there's a series of changes here that continues those changes. Some of the highlights are, more clarification on a habitable attic, the size of a parking spot related to multiple family dwellings, including compact cars. The change of allowing a business owner that has a conforming business that it may have additional parking requirements, so like an auto body shop, that may need to have off-premises parking to actually have that review done with the code office versus requiring them to take the extra step to go for a variance, which may delay it. There's no relief to the code requirement, just procedurally, it's a simpler process. So we did things to address that. There are multiple changes in here. I want to acknowledge that Pat and Tindola, our construction official, Dave Barry, our zoning official, are here tonight, and that if there's any questions or clarifications, they're happy to contribute to the discussion. So with that, we are introducing this ordinance, which incorporates a series of changes, part of the additional installment that's still underway.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on ordinance number 3300? Seeing no
Seeing
one?
no one, move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco.
Move
Aye.
the ordinance.
Second?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco.
Aye.
Thank you. The next ordinance for tonight for public hearing is the non-union salary ordinance, number 3301. This is our annual review of the salary ordinance, which gives guidance as to the range of a salary, both the minimum and maximum salary. So this covers all of the departments, not just revenue and finance, but all non-union employees across all 5 municipal departments.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to comment on ordinance number 3301?
Penny Landry, 135 Lakeside Drive, Nutley. The homeowners of Nutley have, for the past few years, faced an increase in property taxes. And respectfully, I would like to ask the Board of Commissioners, I did go through the salary ranges, and you know, at the last meeting, I asked how we had derived or come up with these salary ranges, and I was not totally clear as to if comparative analysis was done or not, and I would like to respectfully ask that there be a cap placed on the salary ranges that were set forth in 2014, and that those be capped instead of there are some salary ranges which in the new ordinance are raised. And I am here as a home-owning taxpayer asking that the ranges that are increasing in this ordinance be capped at the 2014 ranges, and that there would be no additions for 2015 or increases in any salary ranges for the year 2015. So that is my request. And then I have a question relating to the ordinance, if I may proceed.
Sure.
One of the increases deals with our tax assessor. In 2011, Tax Assessor Labrizzi had a base pay of $117,712.37 and a gross pay of $129,726.14. After asking a couple of questions, I found out that the difference in the two numbers between the base pay and the gross pay was from the settlement of the non-union salary ordinance for the years 2009, 2010, and 2011. The additional pay to Mr. Labrizzi constituted retroactive pay adjustments to cover the increases for the 3 years, 2009, 2010, and 2011. And as I understand it, not only Mr. Labrizzi, but all non-union employees received a retro pay adjustment to cover the agreed-to salary adjustment for each of those years. So in 2009, 2010, and 2011, all non-union employees received a retroactive pay grade. And the way that this has been
Calculated?
fun, I don't know what the right word is, that it's okay, is to say that the reason for this, okay, was because of the union collective bargaining agreements for those years, okay, raised the salaries of the union employees. Now, it was made to, in my estimation, it was made to look like because the union employees were given a raise, that the same thing had to happen for non-union employees. But after doing some research, what I discovered is that even though the collective bargaining agreements provided for raises for union employees, there is no law or standard which states that because union employees receive raises, that non-union employees also receive wages. That decision is solely the decision of the 5 commissioners who are before me. So the decision of these 5 commissioners was because the union collective bargaining agreement was made, that you chose also to make the same salary increase effective for non-union employees. So my question is there any collective bargaining agreements being worked on right now for our union employees which could have the same impact, meaning the 5 of you also coming forth and agreeing to raises in addition to the salary caps or the salary ranges being set forth in this ordinance? Are there any current collective bargaining agreements so that we have no surprises when another retroactive pay increase could possibly show up?
Well, I'll start with this, and if any commissioners like to join in. First of all, what has happened through the several years that I'm here dealing with the police and fire contracts, probably 2 of the bigger contracts through the municipality on our side, is when I first got in, I don't know if you're aware, police and fire are, they go to something that's called binding arbitration.
Correct.
Additionally, through the years, it was a standard in the industry that police and firemen were getting awards of 4% raises or greater. Now, with Christie getting elected the last several years there, he's put a toolkit together and the raises have changed dramatically.
Correct.
So where we've had bigger increases in the past, now we pretty much are settled on 2% increments for police and fire. And there's also been some 0% increases during those years too that we negotiated. And pretty much traditionally when you went to binding arbitration in the past, the award was pretty close or more often a 4% increase a year. Traditionally, these contracts are 4-year periods, so we've been able to chop that in half. So instead of in 4 years receiving a 16% increase, now they're receiving an 8% increase over 4 years. Plus, now they're paying into their medical benefits and things of that sort. So the tide has really changed. The nose of the cruise ship is starting to turn, so we don't have these big increments, and it's not such a burden on the town. But I'll just speak to me about my non-union workers. I know Commissioner Tucci explained at the last meeting that we try to strike a balance up here, and we try not to punish our non-union workers also. And I think the thing, I'll speak from my heart tonight, when these increments are made, especially to the non-union workers, it's not that they're making those large salaries. So those raises are much, much less. If you take the average non-union worker, if there's a range from $35,000 to $55,000, it's a 2% raise for them is a lot different than on somebody that's making $100,000. So it's my belief and my feeling is to not punish our non-union workers, especially that they're usually the people that are low on the totem pole. Anybody else want to jump in?
Well, I beg to differ because there are many, many people on that list that are not in those ranges you just spoke about.
Well, you know what? Also, let me say this to you, is that it takes these people many years to get to that top range too. It's not that these people start at 100,000, 100,000+. You know, if you take our police and firemen and our non-union workers, when they first start, our academy pay, Ms. Landry, out of the police department is $25,000 a year. Now, what we've been able to obtain in these negotiations were additional steps. So we've been able to add steps, captains, lieutenants, so forth and so on. So it's like I said, is it perfect? Probably not. But it has changed dramatically for these people. All these people also are paying in for their medical benefits. So, you know, even though if they're getting a 2% raise, they still might be, their salaries might be getting rolled back when you do the math.
So respectfully, Mayor, the question was, are there any collective bargaining proceedings currently taking place at this time that could,
There's none in my department.
there's none in your department. Are there any union collective bargaining, sir?
None in Public Works or Parks Department with the Teamsters.
Mr. Rogers?
I'll negotiate with the Teamsters, and we have no negotiations.
None going on right now? Okay, all right, great.
If in fact, and when we do, that information is in fact public. Updates as to what we're discussing and why we're discussing it, what the outcome of those discussions.
Okay, so if this ordinance is passed, then we can say that because there's no bargaining agreements going on right now, that those will stay set, and the employees will not be punished, as you said, by not receiving the same raises, correct?
Look, I'm not saying it's a punishment, and I'm well aware I am in the private sector, and believe me, I'm as frustrated as anybody is, and I just want you to know that, you know, we have been working very diligently and very hard, and I don't want to give the same story every week after week, but it's, you know, we try to strike a balance up here, and it's not an easy process. And I understand the private sector people that say, oh, no one should get a raise and no one should get a cost of living. But the truth of the matter is that we try to be fair up here and consistent. And even with these raises, okay, we are all responsible for our individual budget. So when I go about my budget process and I mark in these raises, I see where we could save money and not that our budget doesn't grow. So I don't want you to think that I are being reckless up here by giving out these raises. There was a point when I laid off police and fire, and I sat, and it was through a negotiation period, and I sat up here and I said, look, if we're going to continue on this path where we're going to give out 4% raises and the benefits and all that, we're just going to do it with fewer of you. And I went through with layoffs, and I don't think you were coming to the meetings at that point. So, again, because we're giving out these incremental raises to try to have some consistency and fairness to the non-union workers, it doesn't mean that we're not responsible for our budgets and that we can't find money in those budgets to try to keep them somewhat under control.
Mayor, I know that you guys do the best that you can. This is about a specific ordinance. And then my next question dealing with the ordinance is, the list is quite extensive with the number of positions that this ordinance covers. Are there any of these positions for which there is currently no one holding that position? I'll just bring one up. Sign maker. Do we currently have a sign maker on staff here at the township?
And not in Public Works, no.
Okay, because
Open.
it's open. So my second request as to this ordinance is that any non-essential jobs that are listed on this ordinance that currently are open, that they be taken out of this ordinance, and that position not be filled until said time as that we can have a freeze on property taxes. That is a formal request that any open positions currently covered under this ordinance be taken out of the ordinance and that position be frozen until such time as we achieve some level of property tax stability in this town, pending what happens with Roche, et cetera, et cetera. So far I have a request to take those out. And then to your the increases that you talked about, can I have a second to read something related to just one particular
Sure.
position? If you take, as an example, tax assessor Labrizi's salary in those 3 years that were aforementioned, they represent an average annual increase of 3.4% for each year. 3.4%, which I understand is under the 4% you said used to happen. By way of comparison for those years, average annual increases were 1.6 in 2009, 2.3 in 2010, and 2.7 in 2011. So my question is, how is an average of 3.4% for the tax assessors increase, how is that justified?
Comment?
I don't know how you're calculating your numbers. The increase that non-union employees got in those years is the same for everyone, so I don't know what the basis of this. I'd have to check those numbers.
You don't know what the basis for the increase was for?
It was the negotiated increase for each year for each one of the employees. How you determine 1.6 in those numbers, I don't have that
I
calculation.
took the total and then determined the percentage from the total. So you said negotiated. I thought these were non-union positions.
They're negotiated among the commissioners.
Oh, negotiated by the commissioners.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying. So the commissioners negotiated the salary increases for township employees for 2009, 2010, and 2011. Would any of you other commissioners recall how it was negotiated? Mr. Evans doesn't remember. No one?
Let me try and answer that. And I don't want to speak about anyone in particular because I don't know the particulars of the other departments. But typically, when someone receives a percentage increase, they get that percentage increase. And depending on where they are in the scale, they may also be entitled to a cost of living increase. So as the salary increases, that cost of living increases. I can speak for the Parks Department, and I'm very happy and proud to tell everyone that over the years, through efficiencies and economies, we've consolidated many of our positions. I mean, I've recently had my shade tree supervisor retire at a salary in excess of $75,000 a year, and I had another employee pick up those responsibilities for about $10,000 a year, all right? And that's not counting the dollars that we return at the end of the year, all right? Because again, this year, as in many of the other departments, all right, when all is said and done and we have our closeout meeting, there's probably anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 just in the Parks Department alone that's returned to the Treasury. So we only spend what we absolutely need. So sometimes what's budgeted and what's actually expended is not the same. All right, but we have to budget for that because we don't know what we're going to encounter. I mean, when we get into the resolutions a little while later, you'll see that there are going to be some increases in some contractual services that we go out for, electrical and plumbing, all right? And that's, again, because it's best guess when we put that budget together. But depending on what the actual necessities are in the township and what happens, that'll determine what the final expenditures are.
Okay.
I hope that clarified it a little bit for you. And again, following up on what the mayor said, a lot of the people, at least in my department, and I'm sure it's the same in some of the other departments, a lot of the folks that are in this non-union salary ordinance are confidential employees. There are management people. These are the people that direct the departments. These are the people that direct the union employees. And I can tell you that if you go back and look at my budget in my department, any increases that we've agreed to for both the union and the non-union people are usually offset with those economies and those efficiencies. So again, as the mayor said, we don't want to punish our management people. We want to reward them for doing a better job. But sometimes we get into a situation where we have long-term employees whose salaries are up there. And they've earned those salaries over the years, so they're deserving of that. But those salaries and those increases are usually offset by economies and efficiencies. And as some, I believe it was Commissioner Scarpelli with whether it was the sign fellow or someone else, we reduced the starting salary for our laborers in the Parks Department from $37,000 down to $25,000. Now, it's difficult for people to live on $25,000 a year and try to support a family. And I know.
Yes, as many people in the private sector do know
Yes,
that.
yes, it absolutely is. And again, it goes to the balance, because we need to balance the services that we provide with the
Right.
taxes that our people are paying.
Right.
And none of us here are exempt from any of those taxes. We all pay them.
Right.
And we're all not happy with the amount that we pay, but sometimes there are circumstances that are beyond our control that drive these things. And where there are not circumstances beyond our control, then we're going to zero in on those. And we're going to take a good hard look at how we do things and why we do things, so that our people get the maximum benefit from every dollar that we collect.
And that is respected and appreciated. And I do respect and appreciate the job done by both the union and the non-union employees. However, what is going on in our economy is that in the private sector, these type of percentages are not happening. And the layoffs are happening where we're not having layoffs here at Town Hall. And these people who are in the private sector, okay, are having escalating taxes, but they're not having these same increases in their compensations. So to be fair to all, I am just asking that, two things, that we maintain the 2014 salary ranges and revisit this ordinance maybe after we find out what is happening with Roche. Because, as you said, the ranges do not change for all employees. They do change for some of the higher-end employees, as you said that most people are in that other range, which doesn't make any sense to me, because if we were following what you said, Mayor, then the salary ranges would have changed for those lower-end employees and not salaries for positions like our tax assessor, who is at a higher end, okay? So I'm asking two things. We table this ordinance until such time as we have a little better indication as a public body, the homeowners, the citizens, as to what is going to happen to our ratables in regards to Roche, which I understand a decision is forthcoming, and that any positions that currently are open within the list of non-union employees in Ordinance 3301, that they be taken out of the ordinance, and that we have a freeze on those positions, such as sign maker and other open positions, until such time as we can give some hope to the homeowners and taxpayers of Nutley that we are going to have some tax relief in the future. Now, I'm not sure what the legal process is for this. Can you five just say, okay, Ms. Landry has said what she's going to say, and we're going to vote on the ordinance? Or do you table the ordinance and discuss it? Maybe call some other people in town and see what they think, okay? I get calls, I get emails every day from people scared to death to come up here and do what I do. I have 4 other emails that I could read tonight concerning this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to continue to encourage people to show up here, to speak directly to you, to speak to you. Do we always get the answer we want? No. But this is the process that this township was founded on, that we're able to come here and ask you and make requests.
We welcome people to come out, and we appreciate your comments, but I think that would be up to Commissioner Evans if he wanted to table it, and then it's up to each commissioner to vote on it. But just to move this along, Ms. Landry, do you have any other comment about this order?
No, but we will have public comment at the end of the meeting, correct?
Sure, yes, we
Okay,
will.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Please consider. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to?
Michael Odrea, 133 High Street. Anyone could take this question, but since you brought it up, Commissioner Evans, or even Stephen Rogers could take this question, or you, the mayor. Union or non-union employee, it doesn't matter to me, it's all the same to me. These salary increases that you are talking about, no matter how small or how large they are. It's a simple yes or no question. Will it raise the homeowners of this town, Nutley? Will it raise their property taxes next year? Yes or no?
I'll answer that question. Not necessarily, no. If you were listening to what I said before, that the increases are offset by economies and efficiencies and consolidations, the short answer to your question is not necessarily.
Okay. Just in case it does, anyone can take this question. Do you think the homeowners of this town can take on or absorb or just eat another property tax increase if it happens next year because of this issue? Yes or no? Do you think we could afford another property tax increase, the homeowners of this town?
Are you asking me again?
Anyone,
I'll
yes
give you
or
the
no?
answer. No. My answer is no.
Okay, I'm happy that you said that. Because we,
I'm glad that
the
made you
homeowners of this town, look to this body
That's right.
for protection. For protection. I'm not here to say that when no one in this town wants to punish anyone economically, financially. But what I'm trying to say is, as a homeowner, and I've talked to other people, they feel the same way. Every time we look at our property tax invoice in August, for those who, physically go downstairs and pay it every year and you get that invoice in August, we feel like we're being punished. And, we do need property tax relief. I mean, I look at some of these...
Michael, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. Look, I think saying punish is the wrong word. We get a lot in Nutley for what we pay for, too. We have excellent services, a great school system, a safe town, great services, all that stuff. And like we've said before, and like Commissioner Tucci just said, we're not here to raise your property taxes. We work very, very hard to keep the property tax down as much as we can. But like I've said at the other meetings too, this isn't just a Nutley, New Jersey problem. This is a state problem. There's nobody that sits up here more than me that's been frustrated through these years about, the toolkits that were coming out of the governor's office.
Well, I know Chris Christie allowed you to raise it up to 2%. And what he should have done when he got elected the first time is institute a property tax freeze, period, across the board.
Let me just finish. But like Commissioner Tucci said, and I'm sure all the other commissioners agree, because we're giving out a raise that's very minimum, okay, when you add into the people that have to pay into their medical coverage now, it's almost like they're not getting a raise by the time they might be getting rolled backwards. And like we've been saying up here, because we're bounded by binding arbitration in my department, and we're giving out raises there, do we not give them out to the non-union workers? Do we say no? Do we?
I said
segregate
union
that?
or non-union, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's all the same
because that's
to me.
but you know what? There's a process. That's what
understand.
I'm saying. It's not when there's a union contract, especially in police and fire, which I know about, is very difficult. It's not that I could go there and say, okay, we're not handing out raises, it's over with. There's a process that they have to appeal to. And then you get into a binding arbitration situation. And then an arbitrator tells you what you're going to pay them. So it's not as easy as it is from that side of the bench to sit there and say, no more, we've had enough. We pay taxes here, and we pay a lot of money for them. But again, it's not just a Nutley, New Jersey problem. When you go around Essex County, we are very much in line with what the tone is there. And again, we manage our money through our departments and our budgets. We don't replace people. We consolidate people the last several years that I'm sitting on this board. So these property taxes don't go up even more than they've been going up.
I understand, but Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
you and I are in the same field, basically. We're private sector, and you and I are the employer. We are the employers of this town. And the bottom line is this: if I go to my boss in the private sector, which is 91% of this country, and this state, and this town, and everything else, If my boss, I say to my boss, hey, I need a raise, and he says, well, I can't give you one, but there's your option of getting another job, that's my option. I mean, even he puts a cap and control on me of what I can make, and it is my choice to quit that job and find another one. Basically, cap and control. I mean, people moving out of this town. You even said so yourself, 17 businesses closed down or something like that on Franklin Avenue. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, like you said, your store took a hit because of bad economy. We're not immune to the market forces. The market forces dictate our salaries. I'm a commission salesman, and I'm taking a big hit. But while I'm losing, my property taxes are going up. I'm trying to make ends meet.
Well, I could assure you that this body is doing everything that they can to control the
Cap and
property
control.
tax, to control property tax and manage our budgets. And look, I've said this and I'll say it very to the point. We're a body of five. We work very hard to do this. It's not as easy as it looks from that side of the aisle. Is to say, okay, stop this. There's processes in place. Look, we're frustrated too. We live here. We're not exempt from paying our taxes. And believe me, we know how quickly they come around. But, we try to strike that balance. We try to give you a safe community, a good school system, and plenty of services. And they're not for nothing. And you need manpower and you need people to do it, to get the job done. And you know what? We want to make it attractive for people to want to work in our community as well. We want to get the best and the brightest to work here. And we are not out of line at all from the towns that I've investigated of what we paid. In my findings, I think we're somewhere in the middle of the average of the county of what we're paying our employees here. I know that when police and fire, we are not to the top tier of that. We're right in the middle of that. So it's about striking a balance, Michael. We're doing the best job we can, and we really work really hard to try to keep these properties taxes down. And we know people are struggling in the private sector. I'm one of them, and there's a lot of people in there. But I don't give up. Instead of raising that white flag, I just work harder and I do what I have to do to make everything work out. If it's get another job or whatever I can do to work harder, that's what we do. We don't give up.
All right, well, before you vote on this ordinance, think about the homeowners.
Thank you, Michael. Is there anyone else here this
May I
evening?
comment?
Yes, can you make sure?
I think it's important to convey, and I appreciate the commentary that I've heard tonight. But I sit here and I can't think of a time when this Board of Commissioners hasn't thought about the residents of this town. Every day, every decision that we make is about many factors, but one of those is any decision that we make, what's the impact on the taxpayers? We choose to make decisions that are in the best interest of the entire community. Within any community, there are residents that struggle, and we are very sensitive to that because we want to help as many citizens as it is possible. To that end, the tax levy, so the ability to control costs at the municipal level for the 2014 budget actually decreased $252,000 over the year before. Salary increases overall for last year, regardless of position or person, the overall salary increase for the town was 1%. We do know that if we did not lose valuation in the Roche property, that the tax rate, in all probability, would not have changed last year. In fact, it may have gone down a little bit. But because of a lower assessed value, the rate goes up. Not driven by the cost, but by a smaller base to which to actually distribute that cost. We work to in every department, we all make those decisions. It's up to us to manage the decisions and come to an overall cost for the township that we believe is affordable to the best of our ability, recognizing the circumstances that we face. So when we look at a single line item, It's up to us to determine, do we have the right people? Are we paying them the right pay? Are we being fair to those people? And are we serving the best interests of the town by looking at all the costs and making decisions around how we have to arrive at a number? And by doing that, we arrived at a number for last year that was lower than the previous year.
Just to be...
Excuse me, I'm not
yeah.
finished. I'm not
I'm
finished.
sorry.
In addition, the state of New Jersey set guidelines, a 2% cap, with exceptions for cost of health care and things like that. In Nutley, since the cap came out, we have never exceeded the cap. In fact, we've been below the cap every year. So in terms of managing our costs, we are below the cap every year, right? So, and I share that because I sent a letter out to all the taxpayers showing them all this information. In terms of the aspect of how we're doing in terms of Roche, Board of Commissioners work very hard with the state of New Jersey to have them recognize our situation and recognize that it's a long-term situation that doesn't have a clear answer just yet, but recognize that there were short-term things that were affecting our community, one of which was the demolition of buildings on the Roche property, which was lowering its assessed value. Last year, Building 85 was demolished, and in fact, additional buildings were demolished this year, lowering that assessed, which will lower that assessed value. We have worked out an arrangement with the state that we are eligible for transitional aid, state aid, that covers us during this period. So last year, we were able to get $2.7 million worth of aid from the state. What's really remarkable about that in our effort is we didn't say we want to get reimbursed for the municipal portion of our tax. We wanted to get reimbursed for the full portion of the tax. So we were reimbursed $2.7 million covering the municipal tax, the school tax, and the county tax, which if we were doing a great job just as a municipal government, we would have covered our municipal share, but taxpayers still would have had the burden of a lower school and county piece. So we worked very hard to do that. And some people have raised questions about, did we ever get the money? The answer is yes. We did receive that money. And that money came to the Township of Nutley municipal government, and checks, wire transfers were distributed to pay the school and to pay the county. Right? We worked out the vehicle in order to make that happen. We will be meeting with the state to do the same thing this year to recognize the ongoing circumstance. Commissioner Tucci, Mayor Pachaco are on the Joint Repurposing Committee representing this township. They're working very hard on this. I'm working on the tax side of this with the state, with the commissioners, keeping them informed so we can direct this as a coordinated effort. When we talk about recognizing the needs of the taxpayer, worrying about those taxpayers, I can't imagine any commissioner sitting on this board isn't doing that every day. When we look at specifically one line item and refer to the tax assessor, our tax assessor has a good salary, highly competent, many years worth of experience.
Can we get a part-time tax assessor so we could save some money there?
It's a consideration, but given what's going on with Roche right now, it's not possible. It's significant. If in future we can go there, we will go there. I've worked with, been in contact with the Essex County Tax Board when I actually went to fill that position, and they were adamant about the fact that given the size of Nutley, the complexity, we needed a full-time assessor, and that's the decision that I made working with them. The tax assessor, full salary, full-time tax assessor in Nutley costs the taxpayers on an annual basis less than $13, which is about 25 cents a week. So when we single out an individual employee, we say some portion of his salary, a person who works very hard, is highly respected, we're not talking about changing the quality of life of any resident in this town at 25 cents a week.
Well, he's just a little part of why the property taxes are really high. And another thing, I didn't want to talk about George Labrizzi.
Excuse me, when you talk to taxes, remember, the influence of taxes not just the municipal government. We're 35% of your tax bill.
Just to let you know, I have talked to Joseph DiVincenzo, and I have talked to Lazar. I don't just come here.
I agree with you. Do that.
You know, I
encourage
don't want you to feel like I'm only here. No, I
encourage
do
you.
that.
Keep having those
But
conversations.
that gentleman Labrizzi, I just want to let you. I'm going to remind people. He said this to me when I talked to him about lowering my property taxes. He said to me, "Well, Mr. Odrea, you know, it's a free country. If you can't afford to live here, you could always move out." And that's your tax assessor telling me. And I'm his employer. He actually told me, if I can't afford to pay these property taxes, Mr. Odrea, you could move out. I think he said that to me. It was March 2013. I think that's when it was. And I have a witness who he did it in front of. And, you know, I should have made a complaint. And you know how in the private sector you get a write-up? Maybe he should have gotten a write-up for telling one of his employees, hey, if you can't live in this town anymore, you can't afford these property taxes, it's a free country, you could always move out. That's what he literally said to me.
I'm aware of that conversation. I've had a follow-up with George, and earlier this year, I actually had him attend a class on handling difficult conversations.
Well, for a professional like him, who's probably went to a good school, he shouldn't have needed that class. I mean, I treat my clients with more respect than this guy has ever treated me. But I don't want to get into that. You're right. I don't. The reason why I came up here, I did want to let you know, I don't just go to speak to you guys about the tax issue. I have been in touch with Joseph DiVincenzo. I do talk to the BOE. I keep it fair. I tell everyone, cap and control your spending, please, for God's sakes, because we're all going to move out. I don't want to move out.
Michael, I agree with you. It's very important for the residents of the town to keep informing the commissioners about anything that they can do to manage property taxes, to minimize that. We greatly appreciate all of that input, and we will make those decisions, and we will work very hard to manage those costs. And when we get them, we do our best to absorb those costs each year.
Then this brings up another thing. I do appreciate what you're saying, but you don't need a governor to put a tax freeze. You don't need Chris Christie to institute a tax freeze in this town if you really think about it. I mean, honestly, I scratch him.
Mayor, excuse me, this is a public hearing on this particular ordinance. I don't think this is...
Right, I think we're getting a little off base. Michael, do you have any other comment additional?
No, that's
for
cool.
this specific ordinance?
It's fine.
Okay.
But you know how I feel about this ordinance.
We do.
And also listen to what the lady here said before, too. She brought up some great points that I didn't even think of. But thank you.
Thank
Penny.
you, Michael. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment on ordinance number 3301?
I just need a clarification. The 3 years where there were collective bargaining agreements, where there was retroactive pay, does that mean that the union collective bargaining agreement process takes place annually?
Not a 3 separate years, Ms. Landry. It was
4-year
of a
contract.
for a 3 or 4 year contract.
Okay, it was one process that covered 3 or 4 years.
That's right.
And then we retroactively went back and raised all the non-union employees to reflect what the union employees got, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
That process can start before the expiration of the prior agreement,
okay.
during or afterwards.
That's to not penalize them. Okay. The other thing, if you guys do continue to relook at this, to the point that's been made about the struggle for, the lower salaried people, I would definitely make a recommendation that you look to see if some of the higher end salaries that currently are receiving a higher salary range to reflect capping those and maybe raising some of the people who are in the very lowest ranges, because a lot of those ranges didn't change. But the higher positions, a lot of those did change. So maybe go back and look to see to those lowest end positions where people are really struggling, that some of those ranges are increased, as opposed to, as Mr. Evans says, the ones where it only cost us 25 cents a day or 13 cents, whatever, which, as Mr. Odria said, that's just such a small dot, okay, as to the big picture. And even increasing someone's salary who already makes over $100,000 in this township, that maybe we could take some of those ranges that are showing increases and bring them down to the lower level, since, as you said, you look at what we have in the budget to spend. That is how you decided. So if you could go back and just re-look at some of the people who are homeowners here, who are in those very low ranges, and see if some of their ranges could increase, as opposed to anyone who is currently making greater, 100,000 or greater, that there be no increases in those ranges. And then my other question is, these are salary ranges, and you brought up cost of living. So how will cost of living increases reflect within these ranges?
Well, these are, I believe, are base salaries in here. And then like in the police and fire side, where
I'm talking about the non-union. How, you said that they could also have a cost of living
Ms.
increase.
Lindsay, point of clarification, any adjustments to their salaries have to be within these
The
ranges.
ranges. Okay, that's what I needed
That's-
for clarification.
I think that was your point, right?
Yes, it is. So if there is a cost of living increase, and they got like a 2%
Right.
cost of living, and what if the salary range was at 1 to 130, and they were already at 130, would they still get the 2%?
The important part about the ordinance is it is the government's authority to pay. So without an ordinance, we can't pay. With an ordinance that has a range in it, we can't pay more than what's allowed by the range.
Okay, even with the cost of living.
Absolutely. So within the range, that's any adjustment that's made must be within the range as
Okay.
stated here.
Okay, great. And then, Mayor, to your point about people having to pay now because the state passed a law that employees had to pay into their medical, and that we try to make their raises so they don't feel that quite as much, so that having to pay their medical, people in the private sector have always paid a percentage, as you know, being in private sector, of their medical. So
and sometimes all of it.
as
And
I do,
sometimes
over
all of it.
500 a month. So I appreciate that trying to make the argument that salary ranges or increases are needed so that people quite don't feel
Well,
the
that's
time.
not, that's
But
not,
that's
that-
what I heard, sir.
that's not the point that I'm trying to make
Okay,
to you.
good. I didn't think you would want to make
No,
that point.
because just to clarify that point, is what I'm saying to you is that by giving the non-union workers a 2% increase in their salaries, it still doesn't offset the burden that now they have with paying their hospitalization. So
Unless,
it's
of
not-
course-
So it's not to offset it. What
Right.
I'm saying is that really today, in today's age, everybody's struggling. And in my opinion, the cost of the hospitalization is ridiculous.
Yes.
And that's a state and country problem of what we're going through. And those are really the things that we should be petitioning, because if we could get those costs down, then we wouldn't have all these issues in town, because like Commissioner Evans and I'm sure Commissioner Tucci could tell you, the health care costs are astronomical. And they're astronomical on the government side, and they're astronomical on the private side.
Yes.
And that's what drives everything up. So it's frustrating to sit up here at times, and I could tell you, as the other commissioners have said, you know, we really try our best to manage our budgets, and I know I do, and I'm very, very proud of what I've done here the last 7 years to try to lasso these property tax issues. And I really think we have a great board here, and I know everybody's frustrated with their taxes, but there's a lot of people in Nutley that come up to me all the time and say, you know, we have a wonderful town here, and we get a lot for our money, and, you know, it's safe, and we have great parks and great services and a great school system. And I think there's something to be said to that point, too, that we just can't keep beating this drum that we're overtaxed, we're overtaxed, we're overtaxed. I think if we didn't have competent people sitting on this board, our taxes would even be worse. You know, and I believe in what I do, and I believe in what the commissioners do to curtail this problem. So I think that we've been very long-winded up here. I think that we should move on to a vote unless you have any other comments.
No, I'd just like to reiterate my third request, which is the third one.
Table
there's
it
two.
and to look it
Yes,
over.
to table it and to
Okay.
look at the ranges. If there are any ranges that are abnormally low for non-union employees where,
I don't think legally, counsel, that we could, are we allowed to say if you make a certain amount of money, you're going to get capped, and if you are on the low end, that
well, you
you could
wouldn't
get
be
a raise?
saying that. You would just be adjusting salary ranges.
There can be always changes to the ordinance later if we need changes, if that's,
No, my question is exactly, is that if somebody, as Ms. Landry stated, if they're making 100,000 or are on the high side of the scale, are we able to say,
Oh, you
we're
mean
going to
I-
cap those salaries, everybody's going to get a raise, a 2% raise, except for the people?
No, I'm not asking for a cap,
no,
sir.
we can't do that, Mayor.
I am not asking for a cap. I'm asking for those individual positions that are different from 2014, some of which are ranges between $80,000 and $150,000. The 214 figure would be 80 to 130, and the 2015 figure is 80 to 150. I'm just saying that you look at those lines where it's 80 to 130, and you leave it at 130, not across the board.
But how can you do
Oh,
that?
so what you're saying is
Oh, no,
these ranges were
let-
determined as a
no,
percentage
no,
now?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm
Okay.
saying to you, if the high range is 130,000, which I don't think there's too many of them here in Nutley, if they were to get a 2% raise and that brought them up to 132,000 and they're above that range, what will we do then? Not give them their raise?
No, what I'm saying is, you told me that these ranges are not based on an across-the-board percentage, because some of the salaries ranges are the exact same as they were in 2014.
That's correct.
Correct. Others, however, there is an increase. So it's not an across-the-board change in ranges. It is selective, okay? So if you take a line item, and let's say, for instance, let me see if I can find one real quick. Probably not. I put my stuff down. But anyway, let's just say.
Well, let me ask Commissioner Evans.
Let's just take one for instance, okay? Sewer repair, well, I'm looking for one. Okay, Public Works Superintendent. The minimum in 2015 is 80,000. The maximum in 2015 is 120, okay? Commissioner Scarpelli, do you remember what the range was for 14?
Actually higher last year.
It was higher. Good for you. Yay. Okay, some of them are
Good.
higher. There are some,
Luck
and
of
I
the draw.
appreciate that.
Always in Atlantic City.
So let's just say engineering department construction, 75 to 100,000. Let's say that in 2014, just for the sake of trying to clarify what I'm asking for.
Why don't we, if you look at the CFO line, because I think the example of what you're trying to go to is that's an example, a real example.
Okay,
Rather than just say
CFO.
less is less. So the municipal treasurer, the CFO, the range last year was 85,000 to 142,000.
Okay, and now it's 150.
Correct.
Okay, so my request is that you just keep it for now at 142,000.
And I can't do that
And why is that?
because my CFO is currently also leveraging her licenses to cover for the fact that I do not have a licensed tax collector today, and I do not have a purchasing agent today because I am freezing those positions and using my CFO's license in order to reduce the cost to the taxpayer in my department. So in order to allow her to use her license, she's receiving a stipend, which will require me to adjust that range a little bit.
Okay, but it was a good example, so that one.
That's my point, but to your point is, the reasoning behind why an adjustment was made is that it's on a thoughtful process as to why it's not arbitrary. And I think part of, I think you were raising is the concern that it might be just arbitrary. And it's, and in
Right,
this
because
particular
last
case,
time
it's
I
not.
asked how it was
It's not.
decided, and I
Right.
didn't really get a clear answer. So currently, you're saying we do not have on staff a tax collector,
We do not have a licensed tax collector.
but we have someone who is not a licensed tax collector who's earning a salary of what?
The person that is there right now is earning a salary of $40,000.
$40,000 as tax collector, but they're not licensed.
Correct. They're actually going to school studying to get their license.
And the chief financial officer is also going to school to study to be a tax collector, correct?
My CFO already possesses a state license for tax collector that she acquired and is knowledgeable in that space. So
Okay, so you're saying that she's going to take over as the tax collector, eliminating that 40,000?
eventually, she's going to...
Eventually?
She's covering the cost, right? So to your point is, right, how we manage for the benefit of taxpayers. I do not have a licensed tax collector in that role by statute, which is required by statute, right? I do have a person who's on my staff who by statute holds a license. Since I
Okay.
have the position open, which I ultimately will need to fill at some point, that I am now using the license of my CFO in order to comply with state statute, lower the cost of my operation, and give the employee who is going to school the time to go to school and obtain that license.
Okay, and so in your operation, do you currently have a assistant tax collector
Who just retired.
retired? So that $40,000 to $50,000 salary is going away. So back to my original one, can we take off the line assistant municipal tax collector and freeze that position?
No,
We cannot.
no, because it will ultimately,
We'll need all three of these, even though we're going to raise the salary of the CFO so she can take on additional, okay.
I'm
All right,
concerned-
thank you. I
no,
understand how this
you underst-
works, believe
you
me. Thank
understand?
you very much.
okay. I
Thank
thought
you. Is
would.
there anyone else this evening that would like to comment on this ordinance? Seeing no one?
Need a motion?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
All right.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Motion to move the ordinance?
Second?
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye. Thank you. We'll move on to resolutions. Commissioner Rogers. Rogers, resolutions.
Off guard? Off guard. Okay, resolution number 323-14. Be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, New Jersey, that in accordance with the provision of RS 48:4-58, the following transfers of appropriations in the 2014 budget be and the same are hereby authorized and approved. Department of Public Affairs from Public Health Reserve, O&E account 4-01-104-200, $3,000 to Department of Health, OE 401-110-200, $5,500. From Veterans Affairs, S&W account 401-112-100, $2,500. That total, by the way, is the $5,500. So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Second resolution, 324-14, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, New Jersey, that Budget Transfer Resolution 30514, adopted on December 2nd, 2014, is hereby rescinded. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye. All you have, Commissioner?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Tucci?
Thank you. Mayor, if I might, I have a question for our town attorney. In light of the fact that my first four resolutions are all to authorize contracts for recreation uniforms, equipment, and supplies, and they're all coming out of the same accounts, can I just read the one resolution and put in the different vendors?
Yes, Commissioner, just
And the
please
amounts.
reference each resolution number, though, separately, so the record reflects the number of the resolution.
I will do that, thank you. Whereas the Nutley Department of Parks and Recreation solicited bids in accordance with New Jersey's competitive bid law for purchase of uniforms, equipment, and supplies, and whereas it is the intent of the Township of Nutley to award the contract to the lowest responsible and reliable bidder who submitted a sealed bid to the Nutley Town Hall on December 2nd, 2014, and whereas sealed bids received from bidders have been evaluated to determine the lowest bidder who submitted a bid in compliance with the stated specifications, and whereas funds are available from trust accounts T-24-909-901 through T-24-909 through 915 and have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, and whereas after full consideration of all bids submitted, and this is for resolution number 307-14, a contract shall be awarded to BSN Sports, P.O. Box 49, Jenkintown, PA 19046, not to exceed $20,992 as per the attached paperwork. And in reference to Resolution 30814, whereas after full consideration of bids submitted, a contract shall be awarded to R&R Trophy and Sporting Goods, 104 Ridge Road, North Arlington, not to exceed $7,250 as per the attached paperwork. And in reference to Resolution 30914, whereas after full consideration of all bids submitted, a contract shall be awarded to Dot Design, 242 Possum Hollow Road, Monroe Township, not to exceed $17,233.75 as per the attached paperwork. And lastly, for Resolution 310-14, whereas after full consideration of all bids submitted, a contract shall be awarded to Metuchen Center, 10 Embroidery Street, Sayreville, New Jersey, not to exceed $9,692.25 as per the attached paperwork. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Township Clerk of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, are hereby authorized to execute all documents necessary to give effect to this award. I move the resolutions.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas the Township of Nutley, you guys fighting over who's going to second these resolutions. Whereas the Township of Nutley has a need to acquire specialized professional services as a fair and open contract pursuant to the provision of NJSA 90:44A-20.5, and whereas the request for qualification for Township Forester was received and opened on October 29, 2014 by the Township Clerk, and whereas the most responsible and responsive request for qualification was from the Shade Tree Department, LLC, John Linson, P.O. Box 6089, West Orange, New Jersey, and whereas the Shade Tree Department, LLC, John Linson, New Jersey Certified Tree Expert number 198, has provided these services in the past to the Township of Nutley and is particularly suited to provide continued service, and whereas the term of this contract is for a one-year period commencing on September 1, 2014 to continue through August 31, 2015, and whereas the contract is not to exceed $22,000 and funds are available from account 4-01-512-200 in the amount of $5,000 and 5-01-512-200 in the amount of $17,000. And funds have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, said certification being attached to this resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that a contract be awarded to the Shade Tree Department, LLC, John Linson, as described herein. Response to the request for qualification be placed on file with this resolution, and a notice of this action shall be printed once in the Nutley Sun in accordance with local public contracts law. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas by resolution adopted March 4, 2014, the Township of Nutley, pursuant to advertisement duly made, awarded bid to Sal Electric Company, 83 Fleet Street, Jersey City, for electrical work and services throughout Nutley's municipal buildings for an amount not to exceed $40,000. And whereas it has been recommended that the contract be amended to reflect an increase in the amount of work and/or materials actually required to fully complete the contract, and whereas based on the foregoing, the Department of Parks and Public Property has determined that it is necessary and appropriate to approve a change order to the subject contract in the amount of $28,000 with description as follows. Change order number 1 for additional electrical services and repairs, and whereas funds are available from Capital Ordinance 3242D, Capital Ordinance 3242A, and account 4-01-508200, and have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, said certification being attached to this resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, are hereby authorized to enter into and sign change order number 1 for Sal Electric Company for the Township of Nutley. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas by resolution adopted March 4, 2014, the Township of Nutley, pursuant to advertisement duly made, awarded Magic Touch Construction, 59 West Front Street, Keyport, New Jersey, for heating and plumbing service throughout Nutley's municipal buildings for an amount not to exceed $40,000. And whereas it has been recommended that the contract be amended to reflect an increase in the amount of work and/or materials actually required to fully complete the contract, and whereas based on the foregoing, the Department of Parks and Public Property has determined that it's necessary and appropriate to approve a change order to the subject contract in the amount of $23,000 with description as follows. Change order number 1, again for additional service and repair to various township buildings. Whereas funds are available from Capital Ordinance 3242A in account 4-01-508200 and have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, said certification being attached to this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey are hereby authorized to enter into and sign change order number 1 for Magic Touch Construction, Inc. for the Township of Nutley. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas by resolution adopted September 16, 2014, the Township of Nutley, pursuant to advertisement, awarded Downs Tree Service, Inc., 65 Royal Avenue, Hawthorne, New Jersey, for tree removal services for township trees, and whereas it has been recommended that the contract be amended to reflect an increase in the amount of removals to fully complete the project, and whereas based on the foregoing, the Department of Parks and Public Property has determined that it's necessary and appropriate to approve a change order to the subject contract in the amount of $10,000 with the description to follow below. Change order number 2 for the additional removal of trees which were dead, diseased, and in fact posed a hazard. And whereas funds are available from account 4-01-512-200 and have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, said certification being attached to this resolution, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey are hereby authorized to enter into and sign change order number 2 for Downs Tree Service, Inc. for the Township of Nutley. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, New Jersey, that in accordance with the provision of RS 40A:4-58, the following transfers of appropriations in the 2014 budget be and same are hereby authorized and approved. For the Department of Parks and Public Property, from Parks and Playgrounds salary and wages $17,200 to Parks and Playgrounds other expenses $17,200. From Recreation Commission salary and wages $10,000 to Shade Tree other expenses $17,200. From Communication Services other expenses $19,200 to fuel oil $10,000, for a total from departments of $46,400 going to departments in the like amount. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Evans, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the Treasurer be and she is hereby authorized to refund senior citizen property tax deductions for the year 2014 as follows. Block 4000, Lot 12, Block 9405, Lot 3, Block 8502, Lot 6, Block 7303, Lot 13, Block 8203, 19, for $250 each, for a total amount of $1,250. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the Treasurer be and she is hereby authorized to refund veteran property tax deductions for the year 2014, 4 blocks as follows. Block 4000, Lot 15, Block 4000, Lot 12, Block 8203, Lot 19, Block 5301, Lot 19, Block 5303, Lot 30, Block 801C 3016, Block 5801, Lot 20, Block 5201, Lot 11, Block 8701, Lot 21, at $250 each, for a total amount of $2,250. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Sorry. Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas the Township of Nutley in the law firm of Pyro, Zinnis, Sefeli, Paris, and Genetempo, 360 Passaic Avenue, Nutley, New Jersey, has entered into a contract to provide legal counsel services concerning municipal tax appeals. And whereas the Director of the Revenue and Finance Department has recommended the following change order from said contract as necessary, and as change order number 1, legal services in the amount of $8,000. Whereas the funds are available in account 401-204-200 and have been certified by the Chief Financial Officer, and said certification is attached to this resolution. And now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners in the Township of Nutley, now be resolved by the Board of Commissioners and the Township of Nutley, it is hereby authorized that the mayor enter into a contract for said contract modification. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the municipal clerk be and she is hereby authorized and directed to advertise for the request for proposals for grant consulting services. Be it further resolved that the request for proposals shall be due on Wednesday, January 14th, 2015 at 3 p.m., addressed to the municipal clerk, Township of Nutley, 1 Kennedy Drive, Nutley, New Jersey. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners in the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, New Jersey, that in accordance with the provision of RS 40A:4-58, the following transfers of appropriations in the 2014 budget be, and the same are hereby authorized and approved. From tax collector's salary and wage, $7,000, admin and township ordinances salary and wage $4,000, for a total of $11,000, to tax assessor O&E $7,000, construction code salary and wage $4,000, for a total of $11,000. So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Scarpelli, please.
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 40:67-23.2, and as required by law, the township has elected to provide municipal services to Cambridge Heights at Nutley Umbrella Associates Incorporated in the same manner as the township provides such services on public roads and streets in the township. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley in the County of Essex as follows. 1. The mayor be and is hereby authorized to enter into a 2015 municipal service agreement with the association in a form approved by the township attorney. 2. A copy of the resolution as well as the municipal service agreement shall be placed on file with the clerk, and a notice of this action shall be printed in the Nutley Sun. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Whereas a discrepancy has arisen with respect to water consumption and billing at 32 Plymouth Road, Nutley, New Jersey, account number 8299-0. And whereas due to being unable to access the property, an accurate reading was not obtained, resulting in an estimated water consumption for this account. Whereas the owner received the new water meter July 3rd, 2013, and has paid all water bills since the meter change out took place. And whereas the township and the owner of 32 Plymouth Road have investigated this matter and resolved the discrepancy as set forth herein. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Commissioners, Township of Nutley, County of Essex as follows. Township Treasurer is hereby authorized to cancel water charges in the amount of $1,180.36 plus interest year to date, and the property owner shall pay to the township, and the township shall accept the settlement of $900 for the billing and dispute. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Be resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Nutley, County of Essex, New Jersey, that in accordance with the provisions of RS 48:40-58, the following transfers of appropriation of 2014 budget be, and the same are hereby authorized and approved. From water operating salary and wage, $18,000 to City of Newark Water, $18,000. From traffic maintenance salary and wage, from weed and leaf salary and wage, from sewer system salary and wage and parking lot salary and wage, to road repair maintenance O&E, snow removal salary and wage, recycling salary and wage, for a total of $70,000 from those accounts. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. Whereas a raffle application has been received from the following organizations and Holy Family Church License number 74-14 on-premise merchandise raffle, February 21st, 2014. St. Mary's Church, license number 75-14 for bingo every Tuesday in 2015. Spring Garden School PTO, license number 76-14 on-premise 50/50 cash raffle for April 25th, 2015. Spring Garden School PTO, license number 77-14 Turkey Tray, April 25th, 2015. St. Mary's Church, license number 78-14 off-premise 50/50 cash raffles, June 6th, 2015. Whereas the applications have been reviewed and approved by the municipal clerk and the police department, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Commissioners, Township of Nutley County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the aforementioned licenses are approved and the municipal clerk is authorized to issue the licenses. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye, whereas NJSA 40A:4-87 provides that the Director of the Division of Local Government Services may approve the insertion of any special item in the budget of any county or municipality when such item shall have been made available by law and the amount thereof was not determined at the time of the adoption of the budget. And whereas the said Director may also approve the insertion of any item appropriation of equal amount. Section 1, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Commissioners, Township of Nutley County of Essex, New Jersey, hereby request the Director of Division of Local Government Services to approve the insertion of an item revenue in the budget of the year 2014 in the sum of $7,500, which item is now available as revenue from the Drive Sober and Get Pulled Over grant, pursuant to the provisions of the statute. Section B2, be it further resolved that the like sum of $7,500 be and the same is hereby appropriated under the caption of General Appropriations. Operation excluded from the 5% cap, Strive Sober or Get Pulled Over grant, police salaries and wages $7,500. Be it further resolved that the Township Clerk forward 2 certified copies of this resolution to the Director of Local Government Services. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye. Be resolved by the Board of Commissioners, Township of Nutley County of Essex, New Jersey, that in accordance with the provision of RS 40A:4-58, the following transfer of appropriation in 2014 budget being the same are hereby authorized and approved. Department of Public Safety Police O&E 4-01-308-200, $58,000 to purchase of police cars 4-01-332-200, $58,000 total. I move the resolution.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarpelli?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Aye. That concludes our business portion of the meeting. If, Madam Clerk, please read the 5-minute rule. I'm going to ask all the residents here in Nutley tonight to please abide by the 5-minute rule. It's already 9:30 and it's getting late, and it's been kind of a long meeting thus far. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. All persons addressing the Board of Commissioners regarding community concerns should approach the microphone and provide their name and address for the record. Unless further time is granted by the Board, each person shall limit their address to 5 minutes. All remarks to the Board and its individual members must be addressed to the Mayor. The Mayor may defer citizens' comments to the appropriate members of the Board. Dialogue between citizens and others addressing the Board shall be allowed unless the Mayor or presiding officer or the majority of the membership of the Board shall determine that the interest of decorum and/or the expeditious conduct of municipal business are being adversely affected by such dialogue.
Is there anyone this evening that would like to address the Board of Commissioners?
Seeing no one?
Penny Landry, 135 Lakeside Drive. First off, I'd like to say I'm disappointed, but I'm not down. I'm not beaten down, and I'll be back. And so my first request, after being denied my 3 requests earlier today, is that I would appeal to this board to review our township code and make necessary adjustments as to make it easier to understand and follow, to instate term limits for our boards, our planning board, our zoning board, our historical board, that currently we seem to have some discrepancy as to what the code says and what the interpretation of the code, and the same thing that you're doing to readjust the zoning code. There's some discrepancy insofar as terms for township boards. So respectfully, I request the 5 commissioners to review the code and make some clarity as to what are the terms insofar as concurrent, consecutive, because we do have some board members who have served 15-plus years, where my interpretation of the code is not more than 4, and there are several different...
Council, have you reviewed this, or?
I have, Mayor, and I have actually had a conversation with Ms. about it. We've also been emailing. My interpretation of the township ordinance is quite clear. The appointments are 4-year terms. There is no limitation on the number of terms someone can be reappointed to. That's what Ms.
Great, so that's what I'm asking for, a
my
limit on the number of terms. So I understand, we had the conversation, I understand. My request of the 5 commissioners is to limit the number of terms.
But just
that can be
so
served.
I'm clear on this, is there a limit of terms that is in that ordinance now?
No, there's no reference to it.
Okay, so Ms. Landry, what your question is, or your request is for us to revisit that and decide if we want to put term limits in it or not?
Yes, limit the number of terms that can be served consecutively by a member of the board, because right now we have some people who have served up to and beyond 15 years consecutively.
And what if they're doing a good job? I mean, do you think that
I
they
think
should be
that other people in the township need to be given a chance to serve, whereas we're 28,000+ citizens, and I think that 6-8 years is plenty. There's new voices, people with new ideas, and I think that we need to all be given an opportunity to serve. And right now, pretty much the same people will serve on the same boards over and over again, and that's
Okay.
just my request, that
We'll
we
consider
look
that.
at it. And you and I have discussed it, and you've given me your reasons why you continue to reappoint the same people, which I respect your loyalty, but I do not agree with your decision to
And we're
keep...
not going to always agree,
know.
but we respect each
Okay.
other.
The
Thank
other
you.
thing is that, I don't know if y'all read about this, but there's this amazing kid named Mark Bustis. Does anybody know him? He was recently written up in the New York Times, and I posted his article, and over 8,000 people have read it. He's a Nutley High graduate, and every Saturday he walks the streets of New York and gives haircuts to the homeless. His story has gone international, and you've got to see this. This kid is amazing. He started cutting hair in his parents' garage when he was 14 here in Nutley, and he has made an international name for himself with this Make a Difference, movement that he has started. And I would like, somehow or another, for us to reach out and acknowledge this kind, caring, giving, amazing human
In
being.
Nutley High School now?
No,
No,
sir.
he graduated.
He's a hairdresser. He left Nutley. He went to Keene. He graduated in business, but his passion is cutting hair. He works for a salon in Chelsea, in New York, and he takes Saturdays off and walks the streets of New York.
Is he still a Nutley resident?
No, he lives in one of those more, single-person friendly towns called Jersey City, I believe. Anyway, no, but he did. He did graduate from Nutley High, and he used to cut all the kids.
We'll reach out to him.
Please do.
I will.
And see if we can get him here and give him one of those plaques or
Proclamations.
proclamations. Yes.
Be great.
Thank you, sir. And I want to say to all of y'all, Mayor, have a very Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Is there anyone else this evening that would like to address the Board of Commissioners?
Move that we adjourn.
Commissioner Rogers?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucci?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Aye.
Mayor Petracco?
Before I vote aye for adjourning, I would just like to, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, wish everybody a very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season. And I know we have, our next meeting is the 31st, I believe,
Close out.
Yes, at 9 a.m.
at 9 a.m. So at that point, we'll wish everybody a Happy New Year, too. Thank you.
Mayor? Yes?
I'm sorry.
Aye. Thank you. Time is now 9:34.